Hello and welcome back to Cooking with Gio. Today we have a great recipe for you guys. This is actually a request by a dear friend of mine, Sakina. Sakina, thank you for your suggestion. So what we're actually going to be making today is vegan refried beans. In reality, beans are vegan themselves, so the only thing that makes the refried beans not vegan is if the beans are fried with lard, which most of the times they are. So that's the only difference that we're going to do, is we're going to change that. We're not going to fry them with lard. I will give you a couple options that you can do. Actually, there's different options, but if you use like olive oil or coconut oil or any other oil that is not from saturated fat. Our first ingredient is beans. And the next thing that we're going to do is measure 3 cups of beans. So we're going to be working with 3 cups of beans. I went ahead and put 12 cups of water in a big pot, and that's where we're going to be cooking them. So after putting the 12 cups of water in the pot, and I got my 3 cups of beans, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and use a strainer. And the reason why I like to use a strainer is because as I'm cleaning the beans, I'm just putting them into the strainer so that we can rinse them before putting them in the pot with the water. Besides taking the pebbles out, sometimes I do take out some of the beans. Just try to keep the beans looking really clean. This is the last of the 3 cups of beans that we're putting into our water so that we can cook them. So I'm going to go ahead and finish rinsing them and just pour them straight into the water. I did put the temperature a little above medium, so if your stove is by numbers and 5 is your middle number, then I would say put it like around 6. But other than that, just kind of gauge it and being a little above medium. I'm going to cover my beans. Some people just let them cook like that and keep an eye on the water. I don't want to worry about them running out of water, so I rather cover it so that it keeps the steam. Also, I feel like it cooks them a lot softer on the inside. Our next step is going to happen probably in about an hour, and that's going to be adding some salt, some seasoning. I do like to add a little bit of garlic powder. And I guess at this time we'll just wait until they are ready to be salted. Hello friends, welcome back. It's been an hour. I am checking my beans. I did put a little extra water on the beans just because they were getting a little dry. The top that I actually have for the beans, it's a little bigger, so it doesn't keep all the moisture in there, and some of it is getting out. So I went ahead and added an extra 2 cups of water. Just keep an eye on them. As long as they're not too dry, you want to make sure that they're at least a little bit covered with water. We want to go ahead and salt them. Add, at this point, 3 tablespoons of salt. I'm also gonna just sprinkle a little bit of garlic powder, just a little bit, to give it a little bit of flavor. So that's the next step. At this point, I'm gonna go ahead and turn down the temperature a little bit, just to a little less than medium, so that they can cook for the next hour in just a very low, and a little lower temperature. Just want to make sure that they're just covered with water at this point, like so. It's been 2 hours, so if it's been 2 hours for you, go ahead and turn off the beans. Now at this point, the beans are actually edible. You could eat them. You could actually serve it almost like in a soup. And I like to put like chopped up tomatoes and some avocado and some crunch chips on top of it and a little bit of pepper and eat it like a soup. But since we're working on refried beans at this time, we are going to go ahead and get to the point that we smash the beans. Now, the other thing that I also wanted to point out is that when people smash the beans, you can use an all typical kind of smasher, or you can use one of these babies, or you can use your blender. Either way, I like to use this, that way I don't have to dirty up too many things. It's easier to clean. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. If you do have a lot of water on your beans, if you added too much extra water, this is the point where you can actually take some water out before you actually smash them, because once you smash them, they could get a little too liquidy if there's too much water in there. So here we go. You can let the beans cool off if you need to or if you want to. Sometimes I let them sit for like 10 minutes before I smash them, but I do like to smash them right when they're nice and warm because they get really creamy. This is when you get that creamy consistency. So after doing this step, the next thing will be to fry the beans. And you do want to turn it hot at this point because that is going to be the most important thing in making sure that your beans taste delicious, is that the oil has to get really, really hot. So if you have your stove and it goes from 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, I would do about 8. So that way the oil can get really, really hot before you actually pour the beans. So you want to make sure it's boiling. Now the other thing that I wanted to suggest too is people that like them with a little bit of spice. This is a point where you want to add the spice to that oil. So I would say add whatever pepper you want, a little bit of flavoring if you want to add extra flavoring to the oil, and then you pour the beans and it really absorbs that. At this point, we're just making them plain right now, the beans. They will already be very flavorful. The hot oil and the mixture of the beans, when you pour them in there, is going to be absolutely delicious. So we're just gonna wait like a minute to make sure the oil that we just poured gets nice and hot. You'll notice because you'll start seeing a little bit of movement, like it's getting a little hot. Be very, very careful when pouring the beans. You don't want to pour them from really far up high because then it's just going to splatter all over the place. So our pan is really hot now, so now we're going to go ahead and pour the beans. Now I'm going to try to get close to it and at the same time keep you guys safe with the camera. I'm sure you can tell the oil is hot. Don't get too close to it. Keep your distance, because that oil does get pretty hot. As soon as you get all the beans in there, right away start stirring them because they will act up. We are only going to leave it hot for just a minute to make sure the beans blend into that oil. And then after that, we're going to go ahead and turn the heat down. So we got all the beans in there. Pretty much. We will have to wash all the dishes thoroughly. Okay, I'll get my assistant to wash the dishes.
He's so funny.
See how I'm blending the oil in there? I want to make sure that they get a nice blend. And it's popping a lot at this point, so we want to make sure and turn the heat down a little bit, turn it to about medium. The oil is already hot regardless, so. That was the main thing, that the contact of those beans with the oil is really hot. I'm gonna keep turning the heat down just a little more to about 4. Keep stirring them so that you don't burn the beans on the bottom. You wanna make sure that they were blended really nicely. That's a good thing about blending them while they're still warm, is you get a really creamy blend. But it already looks delicious. Can't wait to taste this. We'll be right back. Now for the last part, we want to make sure we warm up like a homemade tortilla. That's the best way to taste freshly made refried beans, and that's exactly what I'm doing. Hint, hint, for our next session, we are going to learn how to make homemade tortillas. For right now, I'm just going to enjoy this burrito of delicious refried beans with homemade tortillas.